and I think that's a perfect segue into our third question, which I'd posed to Trisha Kisoon. What are some of the key positions, a business should have in its organization to support governance, and what should their roles and responsibilities include? And I guess we will speak from the JMMB's perspective.
Correct. Yes, and JMMB takes governance very strongly. From our perspective as an organization, we have a corporate sector, we have a governance officer, we have a compliance manager, and then we have internal audit, legal, risk. Everybody is there to protect the business. And now this comes from an industry where we are heavily regulated. So respecting the laws and doing what is right against the laws, doing the laws and executing on that is a very, very, very important thing. When you think of it in a big financial context where the regulations are on the extreme, and then on the other side, smaller manufacturing entities, if you strip it out, you're really going to think of it in terms of lines of defense, right? Your governance helps you defend your organization. So like in the case of JMMB, we have 3 lines of defense: our internal, our frontline team that handles all front office regulations, everything that goes through. Then our compliance team comes in on the middle and makes sure that everything is happening the way it's supposed to happen. And if something goes wrong, they work with the teams at the front end. So it's a very collaborative process. But then at the same time, you have the back end of the process, the third line of defense, which is our internal audit processes that comes in and create that oversight and say, hey guys, you're thinking of this differently. You need to protect the business. You need to protect this. You need to protect your clients. And when you think of it from that perspective, and you look at it as an entrepreneur, and you switch away from a financial services business and you look at it from a manufacturing business, what governance does, it helps and allows you as an entity to serve your client better, serve your own strategic objective clearly, and therefore you're now thinking from a space of moving it forward. You're not thinking of where we now. And I think in some of the interactions that we've had, you see that sometimes people don't see the importance of governance structure. They don't see how governance structure can move you forward and give you opportunity. And if you take it back to the first question, why is it important? I mean, let's think of this as an anti-McCall situation. It's one man created a business from house to house sales, and now multiple enterprises under a large conglomerate. So, governance from that perspective, from roles, everyone knowing their roles and responsibility is important. It's important because it helps you drive your business. It helps you, if you start respecting that when you set up your business, you're going to be able to flourish in the future. And I love how Nigel speaks about thinking in the long term when he started his business. He's not thinking about bread and butter only. He started with the motivation of bread and butter, but he wants this to be something great. And that's where governance help you. And I mean, when we get later down, we'll talk about the listings and stuff like that, but getting yourself out there, creating that intergenerational equity is very, equity, yes, sharing wealth is very, very, very important. And we'll talk about that later down. So, yeah.
Thanks a lot, Trisha. Nigel, I mean, I just want to ask you, I mean, from your perspective, how do you think, from what you heard here today, how do you think good governance would help you create a legacy for yourself?
Okay, so real practical. As I said, as an entrepreneur, you're straddling, trying to figure out, especially small, what I would call the nano SME. You have SME, you have micro, you have nano. Fella by himself, hustling and pushing to make sure things get done. The understanding that you're really looking at building a legacy, that mindset of generational wealth down the road, what from a practical perspective, putting in a board or this kind of structure would encourage you to do is, let's look at it from COVID, real practically COVID experience. A lot of the assistance that was garnered by the grants and whatnot, there are some basic criteria. So even if it is you're not thinking down the road for corporate structure and all this nice academic stuff. For you to get a help out today, you need to have this structure in place. It's as that simple. What that does is it assists the contributors. It assists those that are willing or structures that are in place to assist the nano and micro SMEs to see that the mindset is, this is not a throw money behind the fire and hope it out. It shows that the assistance becomes an investment and would then seed some sort of growth, whether it's a loan or a grant or whatever the assistance is. You're showing some sort of solidity, some sort of definitive structure, some sort of strength. You have something in plan, and this is what the help really is about. So I get the academic stuff, I understand it down the road, but we need to live and eat for now.
No, I understand that too. And you kind of summed it up pretty nicely from the perspective that, listen, guys, I want my business to be around, right? And in order to do that, I need to make certain decisions around not just adding structure to my business, but getting expertise and advice from different people who are not involved in my business, right? Correct. So I have that external view. I see Indu has a hand up. I'll just take you straight into it.
Sorry, Roshana. Yes. So, I'd like to connect legacy and growth, because if you want to get to legacy, you have to have growth. And if you want to have growth, you require capital. How are you going to grow without capital? Forget about the day-to-day, right? You need to have capital. And that's what Nigel has been speaking to. Now, that can come in the form of grant. It could come in the form of debt. It could come in the form of equity investment as well. And in all these cases, you have to, as an entrepreneur, put yourself in the shoes of the person who's given the grant, the person who is given the loan, the person who wants to invest as an equity investor. And what is it that will give them the assurance? What is it that will give them the comfort to know that this business is on the right track? They don't want to be a director. They don't want to be an advisor to the business. This is an investor who's putting their capital into your business in different means, different mediums. And what will give them the assurance? A board, some level of external control, a governance framework, and all of these things help give that assurance to people who are interested in pushing you forward and helping you move forward, right? So that's all I wanted to say.
Well, you kind of went into the fifth question there, which is how does implementation of internal control set the foundation for growth and success? So I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more, and I'll move on to Trisha thereafter. Yeah? No,
let Trisha go ahead, and then I will.
Yeah. So you want me to reread the question, Trish? It's how does implementation of internal controls set the foundation for growth and success?
Well, from my perspective, it starts with accountability, right? Accountability, when you have a governance structure that allows you to have, you have to be held accountable to something. Now, whether it's small or huge, you have to have a plan. You have to have a strategic objective. You have to have to achieve the things like intergenerational equity, wealth, and getting listed and accessing capital. You have to have a sense of accountability. When you go for capital, when you go to raise capital, and there are many means of raising capital. It's not just going to the bank. I mean, if you're going in, one way we could look at getting both capital and advice and expertise is through angel investing, which we've covered in one of our seminars before. When you do that, you get actual expertise, but at the same time, you're getting capital. But that creates accountability, and that grooms you at the initial phase of your business build out to become responsible for what the income that you're generating and returning profitability, and having real conversations about what are my responsibilities for, and what am I doing this for, and why is it necessary? I think for me, it's really it allows for that control. And some people hear internal controls and like, I can't do this and I can't do that. And we've had conversations with people, I cannot do this and I cannot do that. But really and truly, actually can clear your mind and help you see opportunities and help you identify circumstances where you can pivot your business or see threat to your business. Sometimes it clears and presents that opportunity for thinking. So you're not thinking about anymore about if that guy using a paper box or he using this material. You're actually thinking more. Your mind is freed up to think strategically, to think different. And controls can help. Controls will help. And I think it's just getting people in that space and that accountability. And as a leader, as a visionary of the business, you have to have trust in people, right? And in internal controls, as a leader, when you sit at the top, the controls help you build that trust. And it helps you build the trust up top, down. So which means the management, or the people who are working for you, people packing your boxes, helping you pour in your candles, whatever it is you're doing, they trust that my leader knows what is going on, and they're here to support me. And those are the things. And I think that is where internal controls can be your friend. It can help you. And I think it's just to embrace that opportunity. But again, I think believing so strongly in your vision and thinking so far out helps you get in that space to receive that information.
Yeah, and I think just to add a little bit more to your point, in terms of setting yourself up for success. Traditionally, when you're in startup mode, you have a certain way that you do things, a certain way you carry about your business, right? And as the business grows, right, the business will obviously now be exposed to different types of risks, right? And not having, sight of those things, right, could actually cause the business to suffer maybe a financial loss, right? And those things could be mitigated if there were proper governance and proper internal controls to prevent those things. I mean, there's no crystal ball that we could mitigate every single risk, right? But that's what the whole element of risk management is about, trying to be able to set those controls to avoid the circumstances that would lead to either financial loss or causing the business to go under, right? So I think we could see now how good governance affects our bottom line and how it could help raise capital. I mean, we spoke about the different types of capital, angel investing, or debt markets, or you want to go to financial institutions to probably take a loan. I mean, each of these things have its own inherent benefits and drawbacks, right? I mean, one of the major things that was announced in the budget by the Minister of Finance, and I think it came up again in the last budget read, is all of the incentive offered to SMEs for listing on the local stock exchange. So I don't know if you want to kind of take us through that a little bit, Tricia, about what's the process for getting listed and so on.
Sure, Rushan. So just getting listed is, people see this as a very daunting task, but if you're setting up your business in the right format and you're doing what Nigel is doing, which is you're setting up your board, I mean, you're fulfilling already one important criteria, which is 2 independent directors outside of your business, outside of the controlling. So you're hitting already 1 point. If you have an accountant on team and you just have yourself and a couple others, you're gonna be able to do a audit committee, someone reviewing your financials. You're gonna have an accountant that's hitting another point. So training yourself good behaviors, you're gonna have to have, meetings. When you have a board, you're gonna be familiar with doing meetings and having those types of conversation, which is a key component of getting listed. And then, it's important because you're going to get familiar with making financial disclosures. You're going to have to work through all of that. You're going to have working through with regulatory needs in terms of working and providing that disclosure. So you're going to be able, when you have that governance structure, you're going to be able to hit the key points coming out of the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange requirements, which is a governance structure. Compliance to all the requirements of listing. You would then be able to, one thing that is important is you have to have 25 shareholders that at least holds 30% of new shares in the company. So basically you need at least 25 persons owning shares within your organization. After that, the fees, you're looking at fees of around, as an SME specifically, you're looking at a $10,000 fee that would basically get you listed, on an annual fee that is about $7,500. That is a recurring fee. Now, you think of all of this in the context of opportunity, right? This is what it takes to get you listed. Your external support, your board, getting familiar with the regulatory reporting, doing quarterly filings, those sort of things. But at the same time, what you have to look at it is access to capital, and the market will push you and the market will judge you. The investors of Trinidad and Tobago is going to say, Nigel, this is not enough. I want you to think outside of the box. I want you to tell me how I am going to get better return. Are you going to pay me coming from an SME? Are you going to be able to move into the main market? And are you going to be able to pay a dividend? How are you going to grow dividends? Or you're not going to pay dividends, but you're going to grow you're going to grow value, create that value. And that value, shareholder wants that value. If you're giving growth and you're not paying dividends, and Nigel is going to the foreign markets and all of these things, you're going to get return and value. And Nigel becomes a rich guy, you know, apart from your 25 plus shareholders. They are your motivator. You know, think of it as your kids, your newfound kids. So essentially, when you look at listing, this is what you're looking at. You're looking at those areas that will help you there, and then it gives you that motivation, and you're now on the spotlight. Now, one of the great things about listing too is that you naturally have easy marketing, because you're in conversation. People get to know your brand. People get to know who you are, and they get to know what you're about. Because let's say, you know what I like to say is, like, if I like to wear Nike to exercise, then I'm going to own Nike shares, and I'm invested in myself by investing in those shares, and I then buy the products and I serve myself. Same thing with Apple phones. That's Apple products. That's what you're doing. And you give, by listing, you're giving yourself a challenge, and you're giving people to invest in your vision. So I think holistically, while some people may see it as daunting, but it's a great opportunity to challenge yourself and push yourself beyond the borders. We see a lot of that in the Jamaica market. Roshan and I work and we see this, and we're seeing so much cross-listing activity going on. And you're seeing where in Jamaica, you're seeing your corner pharmacies are listing, and your corner tire shops are listing, and they're actually driven to prove themselves. And it's a phenomenal thing to see, because as Team TNT, we believe in ourselves.
Yeah, I think Indu has a point to make, and I guess I guess your contribution was right along the same lines as well. About earlier point of having a entrepreneurial mindset.
Yes, I mean, we capitalize on that and we challenge ourselves. But I wanted to say that, you know, this whole, when you look at the requirements, it can look daunting, but at the same time, governance is a living thing, and you don't necessarily have to start with everything in place. And one of the key, going back to one of your other questions, Roshan, one of the key personnel in terms of a support to your business is a good corporate secretary who can manage the governance framework and who can incrementally put things in place and plan for over a period of time. It doesn't all have to be happening in 1 year. It could happen over a period of time where you aim to list in 2025, for example, but you take the time to put things in place. And also that spreads the cost over a longer period. So you don't have to take the hit right away at a time where your business might be just, you know, kind of growing incrementally. So planning and having that strategic, foresight also can, the planning is one part, but the implementation can also go in a very systematic way. Yeah.
Thanks, Indu. Nigel, you wanted to add to this? You muted, Nigel.
Muted.
It would help if I click mute, right? Yeah, so to really bring it home from a practical perspective, this is scary beyond compare. So we look at the television, we're seeing the hostile takeovers, we're seeing memories from Bold and Beautiful and Young and Restless with Brooke and this, what, and look, the reality is, if you have the concept of what your long term is going to be, and you put the measures in place, and two things I would have learned pretty early. Look, you need to have an attorney in your corner, whether it's on the board or an advisor. In our case, we have an advisor as an attorney. She's specialized in corporate law. And the second we've learned is to have an accountant. And based on the discussion, we would have spoken about how you those two entities on your board, you already have an audit committee, whatnot. So it puts you in a position to protect your business from that very same said fear you have going into this thing. Yeah, you don't plant a tree to think about the now. You're planting a tree to down the road to gather fruit. So putting these things in place, and as an entrepreneur, because of this fear, is almost counterintuitive. You know, you want to do this to grow, but to grow you need to overcome the fear. So it's one that feeds into the other. So I am seeing where both Indu's and Trisha's contribution kind of can show the practical for the now and give encouragement for the nano, micro, and general SMEs in the business space.
No, I think that's a very good point. In terms of, I mean, you're addressing that issue there of fear, and I think, you know, when we look at previous examples, right, there are instances of takeover from like family controlled businesses right here in Trinidad, where you know those things are very real in terms of the fear. But I think, you know, the important thing here to understand with the SME listing, you're not really obligated to float more than 20% of your own share capital. So you're kind of protected in that sense. So you still maintain the majority ownership in your company, because as I said, this is not something that you're doing for now, right? This is clearly something that we want to see continue and exist, and this is to ensure that there's Twigs Natural for the next 30, 40 years going down the road, you know, generationally, right? And perhaps maybe expand on into international markets. You know, we pull up on Times Square, we see the Twigs Natural on the screen. You know, so it's all good, right? But again, to grow, you need capital. And I think we belabored on the point about the multiple sources of capital and that's available to persons and how they could go about accessing those things. I mean, we one thing we haven't really kind of spoken about is the environment that we operate in.